Hello everybody, sorry for the technical alert at the start. We were talking shite and I ran out of time and forgot to hit the button. So everybody, thank you very much for coming back tonight again to the Pigsty. Tonight we're going to have a panel discussion on is morality a social construct. The topic came about because Alejandro, as you can see here, was going to have a debate with a certain person. They decided it wasn't in their best interest, probably wasn't anyway. So to continue the conversation, we have decided to do it open panel, and we've got Alejandro. In the background we have Scott, we have Jeff, we have Michael, and we have David, so we do have a full panel. But I thought, to be fair, seeing as Alejandro against all the rest of us, I would let him have the floor for a wee bit at the start, introduce himself, let everybody know who he is. So Alejandro, I will hand the floor to you, my man.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to start off by saying that to simplify as much as possible, we're discussing whether or not morality is a social construct or whether it is an intrinsic part of creation. A nice way of saying this is morality like a game of chess. In other words, we can all get together and decide, you know what, black moves first. We can all get together and say, no, white moves first. We can all get together and say, the king moves like a knight this game, and we can all say, no, we're going to go back to the rules. And ultimately, it's simply a decision. It's not going to have any ramifications beyond people who enjoy the game of chess. The other possibility is that morality is more like physics, in which case it's an intrinsic part of the cosmos, an intrinsic part of the universe, and we come to discover these principles and we come to refine our understanding of these principles. In a situation like that, we can say, well, abortion is no more morally right than saying water is 2 parts oxygen and 1 part hydrogen. It just won't work. So the direction I wanted to take things with my opponent, which decided discretion is the better part of valor, was to say, okay, which one is it? Now, to me, it's pretty obvious. We have come to understand morality over thousands of years. Over the course of human history, we have learned that some principles make a better society and some don't. And to me, this is perfectly obvious. We look at societies which say abortion is good, they're on their way out. We look at societies which say murder is good, they're on their way out. They don't survive. And so because of these moral facts, it seems to me the evidence is in favor of morality being part of the cosmos. And that's where I want to start. We can move on to other questions later, but I just want to keep it focused.
So, in your opinion, it's there, it's unchanging, that's the way it is, it's always been that way, can't change.
Correct. Our understanding of it can change. We can, like a medieval person could observe, plain as day, that, if you heat water up, you get steam. But the actual physics, the actual chemistry, what's actually going on, is centuries beyond his understanding.
We're only saying that now, as you say, that over the course of thousands of years, we've discovered morality and stuff like that, and we're at better stages. And, that's proving our point. That's proving what we're saying about society having a definite, a point on what morality is. Because you look back at, say, for toxic, the Romans, they thought they were at the peak of society. They thought they were absolutely fantastic. They did things that we would disagree with now. We could do things that a future generation would disagree with. It makes the same point that you're making, and that's society having an influence on morality.
I think you missed the point where I said we could change it. For example, if we all got together and said, you know what, murder is great, if it was a society construct, that society, the society that says murder is awesome, will do ultimately as well as the society that says murder is not okay.
Why would that work out? If you end up saying that murder is okay, it goes against your evolution, so to speak. If you killed the people all around you in your tribe, how does your tribe move forward? That would be an evolutionary point.
Right, and that would go back to fine tuning. You're still saying
I'm
that
not. No, no, no. Not. I'm not agreeing with fine
morality.
tuning. No, I'm not agreeing with fine tuning. I'm saying evolution, not fine tuning. It is against evolution to
Okay,
kill off
well,
the people in your tribe.
okay, and you're arguing that evolution just randomly decided morality?
No, I'm saying that with your
Okay,
particular point of murder, you're saying a society that
right,
agrees to go forward with murder, the society will then
right.
go into fruition. It won't if you kill everybody off.
I'm not sure I'm communicating effectively. Okay, so here's the thing. If morality is a societal construct, then we can change it, and ultimately all civilizations are going to do equally as well.
Yeah, but
It's
there's
just
no
like a game
point
of
in
chess.
changing it to mad things like murder is okay, because that would just, we aren't going to do something that's bad for society, bad for our tribe.
Why wouldn't we do that?
Why would you line up
If
and
I
say
can
that
get
murder is
away with
okay?
if I can get away with it, why wouldn't I?
You can get
I mean,
away with it.
that's Joseph Stalin right there. Yeah, that's the whole thing. You know, again, if we're going from purely materialistic paradigm, then it's just a matter of what you can and can't get away with.
I wouldn't put
That's
it like that.
it. Okay.
What I will do is, I think we've made your point and where your point is. So I'm definitely out of my wheelhouse here. This is why I brought other people in to open up the platform. I work better bouncing off other people. So we will open it up now. We'll bring it in other people. The other people. If I keep saying other people, other people, other people. We have with us tonight. We have Scott, who has put us in connection. Scott is from the Promethean Secular Frontier. We have David Worley, we have Jefferson Spatchcock, and we have the Canadian atheist, Michael. So, has anybody listening to anything that Alejandro has said like to contribute? Scott, you've had some interactions with Alejandro before in a little bit of context. He's saying that I have trouble understanding the point he is making. Would you be able to mediate and explain his point better to me? Oh, everybody's still muted. He's all muted.
Man, I'm so sorry.
You're all right, Scott. You're all right. You're all right.
So I think what Alejandro, if I can steel man his position a little bit, I think he's pointing to moral progress as a sign of morals being objective or outside of, and I think by objective he means it's outside of the human mind. It's just like a fact, like gravity, for example. And so the more we discover the laws of gravity, we start to understand gravity better. So the more we understand
Oh no, right. So I
morals,
did get it then. Yes. So as we go along, I'm saying that society is
yeah,
getting better. My point is that society is generally getting better, and he is saying our understanding of the moral objective of society, is getting better.
yeah. And so I think that um, both of these sort of stories about how morality develops in the human species is you could always make it consistent with your worldview. I think just depends on how you look at it, but it seems like there's a little bit of, for me anyways, and I'll just speak for myself. I think that there's a bit of um, an objective factor in something like morals or ethics, in the sense that there's a normative range of behavior that humans tend to be, like say empathy. Like it just seems to be a normal feature of humanity to say humans have it seem to be empathetic sort of animals. I think that's true, and so in that sense, morals are kind of grounded in some sort of objective fact in a way, but at the same time, there's a sort of subjective thing going on in the sense that we can make goals. We can derive goals based on how we feel, and we start making moral codes and moral laws. Now, a demonstration of that would be kind of like laws about dietary restrictions or laws about what to wear. Like, can a person have short hair or not? Can a man have short hair or not? That doesn't seem to be, to me, to be a moral fact of the world. But yet, just a few decades ago, it was considered immoral for a man in the United States to have long hair. It was looked at as, kind of immoral by some people. And so there's this subjective feature about it too. So I think there's a little bit of both going on. But that's just my thought off the cuff right now.
Well, to address your point, you're largely correct. The thing what I would, of course, point to it is progress. Once upon a time, there were things that were seen as incredibly important that we've kind of let go by the wayside. Now,
Alejandro, if you
counterpoint
can,
is
man, it
important.
is very, very, very windy where you are. It's coming through drastically. I know the weather is beautiful, but is it possible for you to put your hood up?
Sure.
Thank you. You just wanted to make us all fucking jealous, like. That's what it is. Sorry if I threw you off your trail of thought. Whenever that is ready, Alejandro, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, way better, yeah.
Okay. So, to make the point, let me go ahead and change my Bluetooth over. Hold on. All right. So, the main point is the counterpoint to morality being subjective is that we can't do it any other way. We can't go backwards. So, for example, once upon a time, slavery was the universal norm. Everyone had slaves. Every culture
If I
believed
can
in
just
slavery.
just stop you there for 1 second. How can we not go backwards? Nuclear war wipes out everybody. We're back to just like, exaggeration, but fucking Mad Max. That's an apocalyptic world is still a possibility. You can't say we cannot go backwards.
I don't really think that's an important detail, but if you want to put it in there, that's fine. Um, the idea being that we've learned things, and if we've learned, for example, that abortion is a terrible idea.
No, no, we
Let's just
haven't.
look at that.
That's your opinion.
Well, we look at all the cultures across the world that believe in abortion, and we notice they're taking a nosedive demographically. Demographics is currently the elephant in the room of geopolitics. Every culture that's embraced um, abortion is entering a demographic crisis for which there is no precedent. I mean, you
Ireland
look
is
at
doing fantastic at the minute, like.
well, if you study the topic of demographics, you realize that there's going to be a terrible shortfall of young people, of young taxpayers that we are entering into right now. You know, this lack of children is what's informing our immigration policies.
I don't think there's a lack of
If
children considering that there's so many up for abortion. There's lots of children that, there is kids. There's not a lack of kids, man. I don't think there's a lack of kids. There's a lack of kids here, maybe, but there's an overpopulation here, an overpopulation here. There's not a lack of kids. But the world
I
population, you do
respectfully
realize that the
disagree that
population is rising, The general population of the world has risen. When I was a kid, it's 6.3. It's now 8 point something. That's 2 billion extra people.
right. Have you studied the issue of demographics and
Have I
how it
went and
affects
studied
people?
demographics? No, I haven't. Tonight's conversation is not on demographics. I'm telling you a simple basic fact that the world's population is going up, and you're telling me that there's a lack of children.
Right. So what happens when that's not even related? Okay, the population has gone up and the population is about to crash. You look at China's one-child policy, and they're facing the consequences right now. Japan is facing the consequences right now.
If
You're
this is
staring at the
irrelevant, why
civilization
did you bring it
Iran.
up?
Well, I'm making the point that these are cultures that have embraced abortion, or in the case of Japan, not having children, putting work ahead of family, and these civilizations are essentially doomed. There's no way for them to turn around historically. We don't even have a model of how they can turn around. And so we learn very, very keenly that, putting work ahead of family, being pro-choice, has drastic negative
Is
consequences
it
to the
what is the two
civilization that
words?
embraces them.
Correlation and what is the two phrases? I think it's correlation and causation. That's
Right. So you have a different explanation as to why they're having a shortfall of young people
Do
that's
I
not
know why
working in
Japan people
China?
in Japan are not having sex and what that's happening in China with their abortion laws?
I could
No.
jump in.
Not the topic of conversation, not my wheelhouse. Well, who you said something?
I was only going to
Go on
briefly
ahead, David.
provide an alternative, even though it wasn't. It may or may not have been relevant to the actual topic that was meant to be discussed. But I would say the reasons why that is happening is more to do with more women and more girls in education, more women at work, more those sorts of countries typically support childcare and are more left wing politically, and as such, those are really like access to contraception. These sorts of things do end up leading to like people having less kids. That is true, but I wasn't sure why that was linked to what we were talking about.
Well, I'm making the point that we're learning there are consequences to decisions, and I picked one that was as objectively measurable as I could. You've made the
Oh, it's
point
just
again. Once
yeah.
again, we've made the point that okay, some civilizations, we can broaden it a little bit. We can say okay, some civilizations are very keen on having kids and keen on traditional lifestyles, and some aren't. And we're learning the ones that are not keen on it. They are pro-choice. They are all about women working instead of raising a family. All of these things we are learning they're doomed. They're
Alejandro,
every bit
can
as
I ask a quick question?
sure.
When you're talking about, I mean, I thought we were talking about humankind in general, but now you're starting to differentiate between different nation states. Are you talking about what's best for humanity, or are you talking about different governments enacting different roles in order to preserve the replacement rate for their own citizens or their own ethnicities?
I'm making the point that moral facts exist, and as a way of
That's
describing morality as
That's not an answer to
subjective.
my question. How are you dealing with demographics? Are you talking about humanity as a species, or are you talking about citizens of nations?
Yes to both.
What do you mean?
They're
Yeah,
both.
okay, so if one nation with a lot of population is enacting certain protocols where the rate of replacement drops, but another country is producing lots of kids, if we're just talking about the replacement rate of humans on the planet, are we looking at like you brought up Japan? Yes, Japan's replacement rate is lower, and they have a huge demographic trend towards a drop off because the baby boom population is going to die, and their population is going to have by about 2040. But is that really that big of a concern when you have other countries around the world that are going to make up for that difference?
Point.
Well, the point is that Japan is obviously going against God's law.
If I could
Japan,
jump
if you
in for
look
just
at it,
sorry.
Oh, let him answer Jeff first, and then Michael, if you can, if that's okay, Jeff.
sure. Well, if we look at it, then Japan is an example of a population that is going against God's law. Japan is not, or is too late, fostering traditional family values, marriage, children, and the entire civilization is suffering as a consequence. So we know, if we were looking back from, the year 2200, that Japan was in violation of God's law.
Or do you understand the difference between the traditional family environment in Japan, because I lived there, versus what that means in terms of the traditional family environment in, say, the United States? Even if you went back to even if you rolled it back 100 years,
If I'm not
do you
mistaken, there
understand
was still a difference. It's 100 years ago, mother, father, children.
No.
Am I missing something?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you definitely are.
Okay. What am I missing?
you're missing the fact that the commitment that families made to each other in Japan also involved their in-laws, their relatives, the elderly, extended families. So one of the issues that came up in modern Japan is women started to become more educated and started to seek work outside of the home. And in many cases, it was because of 2 or 3 major elements that happened in their economy where they had downturns and the men were laid off. The women returned to work. Their moral hierarchy, their moral structure for family tradition broke down. The women went off to work. They didn't have time to take care of the kids, to make sure that they had their lunches, to prepare meals. They tried to leave that to men. The men didn't believe that was part of their traditional role, but the men couldn't get jobs. They couldn't get hired, so they didn't do that. They caused division amongst them and their extended relatives that they usually lived with, either the in-laws or the father's parents. There's a massive sociological and psychological system of things that happens with Japanese quote unquote traditional values that has absolutely nothing to do. It does not even come close to comparing to what happens in the West. So to try to say like they're just not living by God's rules does not do that any justice at all. That is just a weird thing to say.
I don't think your point has anything to do with my point. I think it's just a point.
I'm trying to say that when you say that they're not living by God's rules is not a point to make. Right? They don't have anything like they have a traditional family structure, and it's not Christian. It has nothing to do with Christianity, and its connections to extended family are much more. Not only are they much more complicated, but they're also much more definitive. They can't just leave certain relatives behind. The kinds of things that we could do in the West, where I turn 18 and I can run off and move to another state or move to the coast and marry a woman without even my parents knowing about it and settle down and have kids and stuff like that. That was something that was anathema to traditional Japanese values. It still is in many cases. The woman or man that you marry has to be someone your family approves of. Both families have to approve of it. You have to settle where real estate's going to go. You have to settle who's going to be taking care of the elderly family members when you go. That's not a one-to-one correlation. So that's why I said I think that what you said there in terms of, well, they're just violating God's law, that's flippant.
Does your point have a point? I mean, you're literally saying something that absolutely means nothing in the conversation. Nothing. Sir,
my point was when you tried to compare the idea of family tradition and people living according to God's rule that has nothing to do necessarily with you can't make a one-to-one correlation between Japanese families and their traditional family values and American family values. They're not the same, which is a really good source of evidence for why morality is a social construct.
Okay, again, you've said absolutely nothing. You've said nothing. You've wasted my time.
Oh, come on, man. He really did break it down. He explained his points. I think most people, we could ask for a 2 in the chat if they got the point that Jeff was making.
Okay, well, let me explain this to you again, as simply as I can. If it works, it's God's law. If it doesn't work, it's going against God's law. That's simple. Okay?
That's simple. That's your definition of morality? Could we ask, is that your definition of morality? If
you invade, I hate to be the person to bring this up, but if you invade another country to expand breeding room, and that's successful, that must be God's law, right?
Okay, you're about to waste more of my time with points that have nothing to do with the topic at hand. In fact, you're taking us away from the topic. Just trying to show off your knowledge of history.
Alejandro, you were trying to show off your knowledge of demographics and shut me down, and I had to move to someone else specifically with, well, if you haven't studied demographics, and now you're saying to him if you haven't studied history. Take what you get.
Here's the thing. Let me explain that to you. I'm trying to make a point. You haven't studied the topic, and then you're going to tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah, and he lived in fucking Japan, and you're telling him he's wrong. And he lived in Japan, and you're telling him he's wrong.
I didn't say he's wrong. I'm saying his point has nothing to do with the topic. He might as well be talking about Islamic history.
Apples and apples, apples and oranges. Do you notice the difference?
Yes, I do. He doesn't. Neither do you sometimes.
I'm talking about something that applies to a modern society today, not Islamic history.
No, you aren't. You're talking history. You're just trying to take away from the topic. Okay. You're
No,
Hang on.
if
trying
I
to
can,
move things away from reality.
Let me just finish this point. The impact of social tradition on the Japanese culture is something that they are still wrestling with today, to the point where Japan has, because of tradition, been resistant to things like social work and psychological help and psychological therapy. They've just built this into, this is part of, like, the family can deal with it, relatives can deal with it. It needs to be taken care of within the family unit. That used to be their thing. They're starting to slowly get out of that, but because there's so much family tradition and so much of that history built into their culture, they are struggling to evolve with that as their demographics change. And so when you
Okay,
try
let me
to
ask you
make
this:
these
Are they
glib
having?
statements that it's just like, oh well, if it works then it's God, and if it doesn't then it doesn't. Well, that doesn't say anything about what's happening in
All right,
Japan.
let me address your point. Are they having more kids now than they were 100 years ago?
Is that your only metric of success?
Let me ask. That's the point I'm trying to make, and you are distracting from it.
Is
Okay?
that
Oh,
is
I live.
childbirth
You
your
just want to
only
talk
metric
about
of
yourself. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about childbirth. We're talking about raw numbers, how many kids a family is having, and you're just launching into a cultural exercise because you lived in Japan and you want to talk about how you
No,
lived in Japan.
No.
I've never lived in Africa. How many impoverished African communities with incredibly high birth rates but low mortality are successful as a result of the fact that they continue to birth kids? Japan just happens
Okay?
to be at the
These are
opposite end of the
demographic
demographic
challenges.
spectrum.
Okay, now you're taking the conversation away into a different topic.
I'm just providing you with a
Okay?
counterpoint to what you
No,
accused
you're
me of
not.
saying.
No, you're not. You're not telling me. You're not accusing me of creating a counterpoint. You're just going on about
Okay.
nothing.
All right.
Wasting my time, wasting the audience's time.
Am I
No, the
wasting the
audience is having a
Want to
audience's
hear
good time.
time?
yourself
The
talk.
To the
audience is
audience, I
fine.
ask you, if I'm wasting your time, vote 2. If I'm not, vote 1, and I will mute myself. Sorry, MathPig.
No, I think you're doing well. Everybody understood your point. Everybody understood the difference. If you're trying to make a difference of this American culture did this thing because it's about God, and this Japanese culture is having less kids because it's not like the American culture. The Japanese culture being completely different than the American culture is a good point to make, Jeff. Thank you very much for that. And living in Japan really helped, actually knowing that.
Okay, so now that we've wasted 20 minutes, how many cultures that are producing few kids are going to make it to the year 2100?
Are we not talking the human race?
Yeah, Jefferson.
How many
Yeah,
within
no
the
idea.
human race? Within the human race, it's going to be 0.
Mind if
Number
I
0.
I go.
Okay, now whether you
just
want
don't know.
to, let me talk. Whether you want to blame it on culture, invasion, the way, if the culture, however you want to define it, is not producing at replacement level or greater, they're not going to be around in the year 2100.
I will agree with that, but the human race as a whole is. I will agree with that statement, but the human race as a whole are producing more than what they are not. It's generally going up by the overall world population. So your statement is correct. I was right about the general population growing. Michael, can you please, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. Hi. Okay. So just to get back, because there was something that was said a minute ago, and I'd like to just address that first before getting back into morality. I guess in conjunction with what MathPig said, and in support of what Jefferson said as well, Muslim majority countries are not having any issues with reproduction. Muslims tend to breed and breed a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We had in our neighborhood, I'm fortunate enough to live in a very diverse area, and we had our next door neighbors, lovely people, observant Muslims, mom, dad, and 6 kids, all under the age of 12. I advised a cable to solve that problem, but they didn't go that way. Anyway, so there's an example of how, again, what MathPig said. While you may see areas like perhaps Japan will go to the shitter, maybe. But as MathPig said, the human race won't and generally hasn't. Now to go back to what on the topic of morality, something you had said earlier, you said if you look at the cosmos, you mentioned actually what you said, if you look at creation, which kind of begs the question that a creator exists, and of course one doesn't. But I'm going
to shout you down because I shouted at him for slipping stuff in. I'll shout at you for slipping stuff in. I'm going to be a fair asshole.
Yeah, that's fine. So I guess I'm wondering what, first of all, which God is it exactly? If we could get an idea for that.
Okay, that's not on the topic. I'll be happy to address that as a debate, one-on-one, you and me, at a future time.
Sure,
you can get
MathPig
with
set it up.
Scott Williamson, and we can set that up. But that's not the topic for today.
Sure.
And
Okay, so let's talk about morality then.
Okay.
Okay, morality.
Okay, so morality. So we know that being dysgenic is against God's will. Okay, and people who violate God's will, those civilizations are short timers. Okay, so that's basically it. We can't just get together and decide, you know what, we're going to have a successful civilization that doesn't have children. You can't do that. It doesn't work. Okay, now if morality is subjective, then we would see counter examples. We would see examples of civilizations that say, you know what, having children really sucks. We are going to be anti-children, and we're going to have a great rocking civilization. It doesn't happen. So that's how we know it.
Now that, not me. He's just gone. He's gone from the back room. He's gone from everywhere. That just cut out.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate.
I will share screen if people don't believe me or anything. I swear to fuck.
So everyone, let's share it. So what's the worst memory you have of that guy?
Sorry. Gone. I didn't do that. He's gone. All right.
He must have lost the signal. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's your fault.
Hopefully he comes back.
If he rage quit and it was on me, I will humbly take that.
I do have a point as well I wanted to make, but I'll obviously wait.
Yeah, that was.
I'd like to give Michael a chance.
That was unfortunate.
Because Michael likes the morality conversation, which is.
I love talking about morality. I'm a more realist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure why I thought that was kind of a distraction from the topic, because it seems like that was a perfect example of how societies form their moral laws based on their situation.
Stop. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it would be better for him to maybe argue that underneath, the different moral codes that we develop, there's like this underlying objective fact about human nature that, like, we all want to, feel good. We want to show empathy towards others. And so we kind of develop our morals out of that, but then the situation may be different in Japan than it is in some other place.
That was the point that I thought was very relevant that Jeff made, and if he doesn't,
I didn't see it was off the topic.
The audience got it. Was you can't compare America to Japan with one standard.
Yeah, and it's a great example of how morality is a social construct.
That's what
and how it varies from place to place and time over time.
I tried to make that point.
It's
but
not
I'm
static.
very coherent with my words in the philosophy terms, so I think that's why.
You did fine.
Ask Scott to interject, to explain, to see if I was being correct. But is he? Did you Facebook him?
Yeah, I'm working on it now.
He was in a park. Anything could happen. Oh.
Okay, he's back.
We have audio but no video, Alejandro.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I had a very SoCal problem. My phone overheated.
Oh, that's not surprising, man. StreamYards is very, very good. You're gonna lose, and then we're gonna have you for a very short time now. Once that happens, it will continue to happen. StreamYards is doing that on a mobile.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but yeah, so I got the air conditioning blowing directly at the phone.
That may help, but
looks
yes.
like you guys are gonna take it.
Turn off all background apps.
Let me just check that.
Yeah, StreamYards is a fucker on the mobile. Once you've got that, if you can listen at the same time, Michael, would you like to reiterate your question or your statement?
Yeah, so I was just wondering if we're talking about like morality, objectivity versus subjectivity. I understand that you may not necessarily want to go to the God, but I guess then my other question would be, if you don't want to go to God, if you don't think if it's societal, then if you think it comes from God, we almost have to ask the question of which one, because it's different.
Okay, well, the thing is that question actually skips ahead.
If I can just point out, I don't like having a stream while you're driving. I find it personally on my channel, I'd rather you were parked for safety reasons.
Okay, so the idea is that we have to face the reality that morality is not something we can just make up. We can't just decide, I'm going to have a civilization that's anti-child, and it's going to be successful for 300 years. Not going to happen. So that leads to the fine-tuning argument, which of course said that all these things were written into the cosmos at the same time. Laws of physics were written into the cosmos. Now, the other option would be that these things are, just randomly happening. But then, of course, we have to say the same thing about physics, that this elegantly, beautifully ordained universe just randomly happened, and that's anti-scientific.
That seems to be both a non sequitur and an unbelievable jump. So you said that so morality can't be this thing that just happened. I completely agree with you. Everything that anyone has said, MathPig and Jefferson, both alluded to, if not in saying it in the exact words, that it was an evolutionary process of our species as we are social animals coming together. So it's not just it wasn't just a snap of the fingers. I think we got it. I think if you look at human history, we probably got it wrong longer than we've been getting it right. But we're getting it more right now than we did time ago, and probably will time from now.
Well, it's like anything else. It's a learning curve. We learn what works. We learn what's important. And
that's in direct contradiction to what you just said.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing from the get-go, man. He's fighting.
That's in direct contradiction to what you just said. Well, because you said it can't just be this thing that snaps out, and then I agreed with you and talked about how it was an evolutionary process, and then you just agreed with me.
Yeah, because we understand it better. Physics was always there. Math was always there. We've just gotten better at it. Morality is the same thing. Okay, so you're saying math is a social construct?
No, I'm saying math. You said math was always there. Math was invented by humans.
Okay,
math wasn't always there.
I wouldn't say it's invented.
Then you're running into the same problem you are with morality. You're saying we can get together and decide that 1 + 1 = 3, and that's just not happening.
No, you're the one who's trying to falsely equivocate something like a STEM to morality, not me.
Okay, so
those are
completely
different
topics.
topics.
1 + 1 = 3.
Can we get together and decide that 1 + 1 = 3?
Yes.
No, I don't believe so. I believe that math is pretty objective. I think we assign values to things, but I don't see what that has to do with morality.
Okay, it's the same thing. We discover math. We don't invent it. We can't get together and change it. We can get together and change the rules of baseball. We can say, you know what, instead of 3 strikes you're out, it's 4 strikes you're out. We just get together and make that change. No big deal.
And we've done that with morality as well.
No, we haven't.
Sure. Yeah. Once upon a time, slavery was totally acceptable. It was the cool thing to do. Once upon a time, it was totally acceptable for the Aztecs to open up the chest cavity of someone and pull the heart out to sacrifice it to the gods to make sure the suns came up the next day. There are lots of things that we used to do that were perfectly morally acceptable, and now aren't.
And is there a reason? Have we discovered that our way works better?
What do you mean our way? You mean humanity?
Our society works better.
So let's take the issue of slavery or human sacrifice, which was the Aztec way. We don't do that anymore because we found out it doesn't work. Not because we snapped our fingers and got together. It's the same thing. You're arguing that for your argument to make sense, you'd have to say we can go back to the Aztec way of doing things, and it would be fine. We could have civilization, you know, a continent rises out of the sea. We'll build a civilization on it, and we'll have the Aztec way. We'll have human sacrifice. We're going to have a modern technological civilization, you know, with human rights and just lots of human sacrifice. It's not going to work.
No, because my morality would not allow a civilization like that.
Your morality wouldn't allow a civilization like that? No.
That's right.
God's law won't allow civilizations like that. Well, who are you to say a civilization couldn't do that?
I didn't say that. What I'm saying is that if this fictitious place existed and we went there, then the basis of what I should have said is the basis for my morality would not have allowed that. The same reason that stopped
so
us.
You wouldn't like it. So you wouldn't like it.
It's not a matter of opinion. You don't even know what my moral foundation is, and yet you're making judgments on it.
Yeah, because you're trying to distract from the point.
Would you like to know what my moral foundation is?
You know what? I don't. Okay, go ahead. Shoot. Go ahead. Tell me what is your moral foundation? What makes you feel good?
I love the way you throw your hands up in the air as if his moral foundation on a discussion about morals isn't relevant. But yeah,
no. Yeah, right.
Okay.
My foundation for morality is well-being, and it is an objective standard.
According to who?
According to society, according to empathy, we can look at things. You can laugh at things, but it doesn't make your point more relevant. So we can look at things.
Why can't I say my well-being is an objective standard? Okay, you know what? I'm Joseph Stalin. My well-being counts. That's objective. That's just as objective. What's your quotes around that?
Okay.
You know?
So
you just pulled the Sam Harris out of and threw it out there. Like that point has been debated to death. That is an old, dead point.
I'm
well-being.
glad you think so.
Human well-being. Yes.
Alejandro, please. Now you're not making a point. You're saying that his point and over and over and over. Please let Michael finish.
So
okay.
when we look at morality, we can use it as an objective standard. We can look at there isn't a single solitary situation or hypothesis or scenario that you can pose to me that I cannot employ well-being as an objective standard and come out with a better outcome. So, and what I mean by that is we can look at the well-being of individuals. We use things like empathy. We look at things like trying to ensure the best possible outcomes, the promotion of flourishing, the reduction of suffering, all of these different types of things. We can employ these under the envelope of well-being, and there's absolutely no scenario you can pose to me that I can't solve using that as an objective standard. And I would challenge you to do so.
Okay, well, first of all, I already addressed that point, and it's nice that you didn't listen. I said, why is human well-being so important? Okay, where did that come from? I made that point, and you just completely ignored it. You just went full Sam Harris on me.
No, so
all right.
Did you seriously ask me why well-being is important?
Yeah, why human well-being is important?
The survival of our species, the betterment of our species, the promotion of flourishing.
Which is important
because if we don't protect our species, if we don't promote flourishing, if we don't reduce suffering, we are not here anymore. And this is something MathPig alluded to earlier, and Jefferson elucidated on.
And why is that important?
Yeah.
Why is our survival important? I don't understand that.
It's like, let's set up a society where murder's okay and we can just kill everybody, and it's like, yeah, that'll be really good for our society. It makes no sense, man.
I want to ask
Jeff. I'm going to give you the floor, Jeff, and then I do want to tap David and Scott. I'll leave Scott to the end because Scott has a background with Alejandro. So, Jeff, ask a question if we can, short response, and then I want to hand the floor to David.
So for the purposes of like a philosophical discussion, what Michael is basically saying is like, okay, well, he's trying to make a case for sort of objective moral facts, right, for the species. But what it sounds like here, it sounds like to me, like when Alejandro was asking Michael for why is that the case, what's the reason for that, it sounds like you might be asking for that outside the species. Like, why is it the case that that's moral for us at all? Like, what if humans were just to disappear and God decided to favor a species of moth, a butterfly, right? Is that what's going on, Alejandro?
Yep.
There is actually a
Exactly right.
species of butterfly that feasts on their
That
own
is.
caterpillars.
Okay, so he's admitted to that. Okay, so that was my only question. So
See,
it
the
could
thing
be the
is, well,
case.
mhm,
So if God's covenant with humanity
mhm.
doesn't apply, it could apply to other species of animal, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
The other part, now, if I may further on that point,
If you
you
can,
have
really
to
quickly,
posit
because
there's
as I
something
did say,
special.
I'm going to let David ask a
Then I
few
will.
questions, so if real
Sure.
quick.
Real quick then. You can't even make that point that human is special from a purely materialistic paradigm. Humans are just one species of animal. You know, bears, moths, pigs, dogs. Humans are just one species. To posit there's something special about us isn't scientific. You know, in fact, it's anti-scientific because we can say if humans went extinct with a snap of a finger, it'd be much better for many, many other species on the planet. Continue, please.
I wasn't sure if there was any response or whether I should just go into it.
If you want to add yours, I don't think there's any response to that, so go on ahead there.
All right, sure. I didn't say hi earlier either to Alejandro. Hello, it's David. I was going to ask, are you making an argument from Kant's categorical imperative?
Categorical imperative. I'm not sure how you're using that term.
That's okay. So
What do you
I'll
mean
have
by
to
categorical?
explain for the audience anyway. So Kant came up with the categorical and the hypothetical imperative. Excuse me. The categorical is saying something like, don't murder. Whereas the hypothetical is saying, if you don't want to go to jail, don't murder. So there's an if clause that's introduced to the hypothetical. Okay? You're arguing for an objective, don't murder, I assume. It may not come up as like a to do with murder, or it might be something else like abortion or whatever it is. But from the structure of the argument, are you arguing in favor of morals being blanket statements, don't do this, don't do that, and they're not circumstantial with an if clause?
Well, the thing is, we have if clauses as far as there is such a thing as context. Okay. So, for example, murder is wrong, but if someone's trying to kill you, murder is wrong. Okay, that is killing without justification. But of course, self-defense is okay. So, you know, me going out and just killing someone randomly, that's murder. You know, someone trying to kill me and I kill him in self-defense, that's okay. And so, for a theist, it's very easy. We can say, well, human well-being is what God wants. Okay, it's very easy for us. It's very easy for us to say, you know, when I make this decision, what is it that God would want? So, say for example, in a time of war, I sacrifice myself to save my squad. You know, that's what God wants. You know, so does that answer your question?
Okay, so yeah, that does. So I would argue, as you just have, which is that morality is circumstantial in that sense. There is no objective, don't do this, don't do that. It depends on the context. And so as long as everyone else in the audience is following, I'll continue. So if humanity was to die out, as we just said, would morality still exist?
Yes, absolutely.
In what form?
The same way math exists, the same way physics exists. And that's again an anti-solipsism. You know, there's this idea that all of these things are either contingent on us, that, you know, if we're not around, it doesn't exist. And once again, that goes to the chessboard example I gave. You know, if humans disappeared, there would be no more chess. But with morality, math, physics, things like that, it doesn't matter if were around or not. Literally, the tree falling in the forest makes a noise, even if there's no one around to hear it.
Okay. So just to throw something else out there, do you follow the idea that animals have morality, or would you be someone who says animals don't have morality, but they exhibit behaviors that look to us like morality?
By and large, morality is to human beings what swimming the oceans is to sharks, something we're categorically better at. You can make an argument that perhaps a dog has some semblance of it, but again, even in science, we are cautioned strongly against anthropomorphizing. Chimps take slaves, chimps make war, and a lot of people make that argument, go, well, a dolphin saved me, therefore dolphins are good. Like, no, there have been examples of dolphins pushing people out to sea. So we have to be very, very careful on that point.
Alejandro, how do you figure out why elephants mourn their dead?
Why would an elephant mourn their dead? Well,
they do
probably
that.
Because, yeah, they do. I'm not arguing that point. They do exhibit behaviors that appear to us to be very strongly associated with mourning their dead. And of course, mourning the dead is a very, very primitive phenomenon. We have examples of that is one of the first things humans discovered. I mean, we have buried Neanderthals. We have that going all the way back into hominid history.
Okay.
But again, that's the difference between understanding hot and cold versus the motion of the atoms is, way different.
So those elephants are what? They're less evolved or more evolved?
They're obviously less evolved.
Why? They're contemplating that their loved one has left them,
Right.
and they're mourning their loss. They understand death.
The bit of belief that they understand death, they are mourning their loss. That I'll grant. But as far as does that make them moral, you'd have to just expand the definition of morality, and you'd have to change it to be one of feeling based. You'd basically be arguing hedonism. I would think
Why?
that the root of morality, I'm getting to that, the root of morality would be our choice, okay? If we say morality,
do you think elephants choose
bad,
to mourn?
I don't think they choose to mourn. I think that's just what they do. I don't
So
think
why would you bring up choice?
Because for it to be a moral thing to mourn the dead, they have to have the option not to mourn the dead. That would be the main demarcation. If doing what feels good is moral, then basically everything is moral.
But that's not obviously they don't. Do you think the elephants feel good when they mourn their dead?
I already made that point. I answered your question. It's that they don't have a choice. Elephants don't contemplate. Well, he was a bit of an asshole, so I'm not going to feel sorry for him. That's not present.
How is that any different than what humans go through?
Humans have a choice. I just went over that.
How do we choose? Hang on. How do we choose how to feel?
I'm not worried about feelings. I'm talking about actions. Do you choose to steal or not?
You just equated elephants' moral actions with feelings, and now you're telling me that's not something that humans.
I said it appears to be, morality, and you can kind of make it. But again, the thing is choice. What makes our actions moral is whether we choose. Did we choose to steal? Did we choose to murder? Did we choose to lie?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about. God damn, dude, you have completely run off course. That is not at all what I'm talking about. These animals have a comprehension of loss when one of their others die. They consider that a bad thing. Do you not understand why that's an issue?
I get that they feel it's a bad thing. I mean
feel or no?
I'm pretty sure they have feelings, but I'm trying to get the jump from feelings to moral agency.
You were telling us about the demographics of Japan and all these other countries. This is a species of animals that realizes that a breeding pair or something, the potential for more elephants has died, and they feel bad about it. So it kind of sounds like they have a grounding for morality based on what you started with when we started this discussion from the jump. Are you now saying that that's not the case?
I've tried to explain that several times to you. Okay, we as human beings grasp the consequences of our actions. We choose to have children. We choose not to have children. Okay? Elephants, when they mourn their dead, I don't know any of them are going to sit down and go, you know what? Bob over there was a total jerk. I'm glad he's gone. I don't think you're going to find an elephant that does that.
How do you know?
You would have told me.
Okay, so look, the fact that it's normative for elephants to mourn the dead of certain members does not mean that it is universal for all elephants to mourn the dead of every elephant. You could have an elephant that doesn't care one way or the other. You could have that one psycho, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good point to make.
Well, again, that's why we have severe caution when we assign morality, like the gentleman right here who's deciding to walk in the middle of the street into oncoming traffic.
Or the guy that decided to drive while streaming.
While streaming, yes, exactly.
Okay, moving on. So at any rate,
yeah, move on from you.
No, serious, man. He's just walking in the middle of the street.
And you're just streaming while driving.
You were distracted in at least 3 or 4 different ways, and you're driving
one-handed
Los
while
Angeles.
drinking with your head up off the screen while streaming. There's like 4 things wrong
That's
with
Los Angeles, dude. Welcome to LA.
So you're justifying it based on your situation.
On your situation, there we go.
Justified it by your social. You just justified it by your society. It's okay where you are because your society deems it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So moving back to what
moving
we're talking
on.
Of course.
That's why we're severely, limited in
If anything, Alejandro, I am enjoying the conversation. It's going well. Neither one of us has called each other an asshole yet, so we're doing quite well.
You're getting somewhere. But Alejandro, do you think that morals come from nature, or do you think that it comes from supernaturalism?
Well, this is one of those. This is the same conversation about physics, and this is the conversation about the fine tuning we mentioned earlier. We can either way we chalk it up to you're asking where did it come from, and again we can either argue that all these things randomly came into being with the cosmos, just happened to be that way, or it's a product of conscious design. Myself being a theist, this is conscious design.
Okay, so basically you're agreeing that morality can be traced back through natural processes, though. Regardless of where it came or originally, the fact is that evolution and all that stuff is natural. It happens in the natural world. And so things like morality and things like that emerge out of that natural process. Would you agree with that or not?
I'd have to look to math and say, okay, does math a part of nature? We can say yes, the math is a perfectly.
I wouldn't say math is a part of nature. I would say math is a language we use to describe nature.
Okay, well, if it's descriptive, then it shouldn't be able to predict the future. That's the problem.
What?
Regardless, let's go ahead and grant you that. Let's just go ahead and just for the sake of argument, how does that prove that morality and mathematics and all that kind of stuff isn't natural?
That goes back to fine-tuning. We'd have to look at the absolute odds of things working out. We'd have to look at, why the universe seems to be ordered according to mathematical principles. We'd have to wonder why, moral principles are, basically written into the cosmos, and to disobey those moral principles are work out.
Alejandro,
So
do you
just
think? Do you
one second.
Let Scott
Sorry,
finish,
Scott.
Jeff.
Yep.
Let
Sorry,
Scott
sorry.
finish.
So because you perceive the world as designed, like humans create things, and therefore the universe is probably created by some Superman or whatever, right? Because it appears that way, this means that morals are supernatural. Okay, but still, the morals that we're talking about emerge out of the natural world. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, we discover it empirically. Absolutely.
Okay. So if that's the case, then we can say that social constructs also emerge out of the natural world. After all, social constructing societies is part of what humans do, right? And we're part of
Well,
the universe, right?
I think that really redefines social construct as a term. When we use the word social construct, we're typically arguing things that we can change back and forth, like fashion, like the rules of chess, the rules of baseball, the rules of football. There's nothing preventing us from saying, you know what, instead of 10 yards to a first down, it's only going to be 9 yards to the first down.
Okay.
We
So
can
we
get
both
together and
agree with
change
that. Those things
Okay.
exist.
hmm
So we can
And
agree
those
that,
are social constructs.
right.
Now we can, now as far as building a civilization, the whole idea is to build one using successful principles.
Okay.
So that's
So if
us getting together.
a manufacturer of a computer, like say the founder of Apple or Windows or something like that, creates like this operating system or applications and tools that work, that necessarily must come from God.
I think all great art emulates God. That's the whole idea. Is we find meaning, and when we have like the bull statue. Let's grab one. The bull statue outside of the New York Stock Exchange.
Hmm.
That's symbolizes. That's something you look at. The danger, the rush, the power. That's all symbolized in that bull.
Gotcha. So, this
And
kind of gets back into the question about which God, because we're kind of talking about the nature of God. So, like, somebody could say that the natural world, the universe, is God, right? In the sense that everything comes from the universe, right?
yeah, the
So,
pantheism is coherent to a large degree.
right. So I'm saying that it's just a matter of subjective value to say that universe is God. I mean, you could just say it's the universe and be perfectly fine. To put God label on it would just be your own subjective evaluation. Maybe it makes you feel better, or maybe it helps you talk about things a little different as a good analogy. But at the end of the day, we're all talking about the same thing, that morality and everything that exists comes from the same universe, right? So in that case,
That's a
we're not
whole
really saying anything
conversation.
different, are we?
That's a whole conversation I'd love to have with you, Scott. That's a whole conversation.
But as it
I'll
relates
take
to the topic, do you kind of see how it kind of relates to the topic, though? Because we're talking about objective versus society, a social construct. So, like, a social construct is part of the universe, it's part of the natural world. It comes from the natural world. So, aren't we really just saying the same thing? I mean, until you define God, we're kind of stuck just agreeing that, morals and what we call morality, I mean, evil, things that we call immorality also exist and come from the same God, essentially.
Right? Well, the problem is you hit where does the universe come from? Now, for you to make pantheism stick, for lack of a better word, you'd need to argue, number one, the cosmos exists. Number two, that it can't not exist. Okay, and those are two
Well, the
questions that are
cosmos may
very
or may
hard.
not exist. I mean, all we have is the observable universe, and there may be something outside of the observable universe. There may not be. Pantheism would encompass the cosmos if it exists, just like theism encompasses this supernatural God thing if it exists. The difference is that with theism, it's saying that this God does in fact exist, and we know it exists. And so, of course, the atheist or the pantheistic, agnostic position would be, well, prove it. show that this supernatural thing that exists outside of the observable universe exists, you're kind of in the same position as the pantheist who's just accounting for the observable, but at least we're admitting it. Whereas you're kind of jumping.
Well, if you want to get into it, you'd have to prove that the universe exists, and Descartes established that's a very difficult challenge. You know,
Depends on what you mean by exist and reality and all of that, which is kind of a change of the subject, and I don't want to really steer us off course, you know, with my questions. But my only point was.
You're arguing.
Go ahead, Alejandro.
Well, Scott, if you want to say God may or may not exist, I'm perfectly within my right to say the cosmos may or may not exist.
Correct.
You have to prove that it does.
I don't really have to, because I'm not making a claim. If I made a truth claim that there's something outside of the observable universe, we're going to call the cosmos.
Then you're necessarily.
Then I would have the burden of proof, but I can't really. I wouldn't dare make that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. I kind of believe that there's obviously something outside of this observable universe based on what people in the know tell us. You know, they say that the universe, the observable universe, started from a point, but they can't go back beyond that. And something can't come from nothing, you know, in my view. So there's probably something outside of our observable universe. I will call it the cosmos, just as a placeholder. And I can call all of this stuff God in the sense that it explains everything that the supernatural God explains, only better. So when it comes to this moral thing, I can say that, yeah, there's no contradiction. Whether there's a God or not, morality seems to be a construct, a social construct. You know, it doesn't contradict theism at all.
Okay, well, number one, you're arguing that atheism or non-theism is a belief. Now, if we're going to say that non-theism is a belief, then we can say theism is a belief, and I don't have to prove jack shit. Okay? I can say I believe in God, and you can say, well, I believe in not God. Okay, we're even. Okay?
Yeah.
You're trying to impose you're trying to impose a burden on me that you yourself are unwilling to engage in.
No, secondly, I'm not saying that at all. I just said that I would dare not take that position of a truth claim, because I simply don't know the truth on that. And I don't think anybody does, including the theist. So I think for me, I'm more of an agnostic on that. So I'm not really making a truth claim. Now, if you're an agnostic theist, that's fine. You're not really making a truth claim. You're not making a knowledge claim, at least.
Well, the problem is, if you're not making a truth claim, then you can't say I'm wrong. Because if you're saying I'm wrong, you are making a truth claim that I'm wrong.
But I can say your arguments are faulty. If you make a bad argument for something, even if I agree with you, I can criticize your argument.
Unfortunately, you lose then again as well, because you're not making any arguments, and bad arguments beat no arguments, so you lose.
Not necessarily. This argument's gone on for thousands of years between the agnostic and the theist who claims to know. Basically, the argument is, anytime you make a truth claim, you inherit the burden of proof. And so that's my argument.
You're making a truth claim that theism is false. As much as you may dance around the point, ultimately you're making. At the moment,
right, and we've been through this before. I understand there's no middle ground with you. You either you think that a person either believes in God or they don't. There's no such thing as I don't know. Is that correct?
Not quite. Either God exists or God does not exist.
Correct.
Now, as soon as
I agree.
You keep trying to put this belief into it, you're changing the whole dynamic. God exists or God does not exist.
Okay. I agree.
Only two possibilities. Okay.
Correct. I agree. So when you say, but there's a position where you don't know whether the God exists or not, right? Is that a valid position to hold?
Well, the problem is, people who hold this position are being disingenuous. Okay. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine a complex math problem. Let's just imagine a chalkboard that's got a very complex math problem. All right. and a kid says, I don't know what the answer is. And the professor walks up and says the answer is 3. Okay? Now, as soon as the child says, well, I don't believe you, the child is saying, I know what the correct answer is. All right? As soon as someone says, I don't know, they give up the ability to be skeptical. Once you are skeptical, you are making arguments that you know the answer is not 3, and you're going to show why.
But you just said that belief kind of throws the whole thing out. So you're saying that when a child says, I don't believe it's the number 3, let's say that it's multiple choice. It's 1, 2, or 3, right? And those are the possible answers. Well, the child can say validly, I don't believe it's 1, 2, or 3, because I don't know what the answer is.
Okay.
Isn't that fair to say?
They can say that, but of course what the professor says, because I know it's 3, I'm the professor, then the child...
That's different. He knows. He's in the know. We're talking about the kid, though.
And
that's likened
right.
to
and
the
child,
agnostic here.
Yeah,
right. And the
I gotta
agnostic,
ask,
of course,
like, the kid's not convinced that it's 3, so the kid is
right.
convinced that it must not be.
Once again,
Maybe girl's 4 and it
if
took her all
someone,
of fucking 5 minutes to figure out that.
No, dude, that's not how that works. No.
Right.
No, seriously, you put 2 toys in front of her and you put another 2 toys in front of her and you go, that's 2 and that's 2 and together they're 4. It's dead simple. You put it in front of them, they're convinced of it.
Well, you've got people who are not convinced, that's the problem.
Well, maybe that's a bad analogy.
Are
We're
those
looking
people
at, you got to
Christians?
understand, God is something that's a lot different than something we can find out, I think.
Why?
Because God, when you label something God, I mean, that's all subjectivity. That's a subjective idea. That's why we have millions of different gods and different teachings of God.
What is subjective about creating the cosmos? What is subjective about fine-tuning
well,
the cosmos?
no, not that. I'm not talking about that.
If the cosmos was created by an individual thing, it's very subjective. That's
Right.
sort of the idea.
Correct.
What?
Yeah,
Why would that be subjective?
If you believe that creation was created, all the stuff that exists is creation, created by a master planner, you believe in a subjective planner or creator. It just stands to reason.
How is that subjective? What's subjective about physics?
Oh my God. You believe that everything is dependent from one creator being that made everything thus and so. Yes?
Right.
That is by definition subjective.
Okay, so now reality is subjective, objective. Great. You've made subjective a meaningless term.
No, it didn't.
Math is subjective now. Physics is subjective.
It's not at
How
all.
my car works is subjective.
The
How
Zoroastrians
cells work. How cells work, that's subjective. Congratulations. It's all subjective.
Let's say it was true that a supernatural being created the universe. Well, it's a subjective thing to say, well, it's Jesus. Well, it's Allah. Well, it's, the Hindu gods, the pantheon of gods. Those are subjective ideas. Because even scientists will say, well, the universe came from something. So it's not like anyone's disagreeing on your point that things came out of other things. Okay, we'll grant that. But what the subjective part of this is that what being are we talking about? That's subject to how you view things, your worldview.
There's 2 parts to this. Number 1, the part that that monotheists agree on, which is God created the universe. Okay, we'll just put that right there. Now, I covered this in my last debate. Is that thing that created the universe, okay? We all agree on that point. Now, when we're discussing God, we're discussing the qualities which naturally follow from creator of the universe, creator of the cosmos, okay? The subjective part is not so much a different God, but people's understanding. And this is, of course, where we run into moral ambiguity. What does God really want? And that's a process of discovery. There are lots of people. What?
How do you suppose that the God that you presuppose as being the creator of all things is different than Yahweh in Judaism or Jesus in Christianity?
Okay, well, we start with God, the creator. Okay? God created the cosmos, fine-tuned the cosmos. Okay, so God is conscious, self-aware, and all-powerful. Okay, great. So created the universe, gave us free will, wants us to do good, obviously. And so we say, okay, God is good. So what does an all-powerful, all-knowing, all good being want? Now the thing is, Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians have come to different answers in minor ways. You know, and this of course was
No,
specifically in
they've
salvation.
come
You know,
they've
what
come
does
to
God want?
disagreements in
You know,
major ways. For example, there's Christians like Calvinists who believe there is no free will. First of all, so they're theists, and they say that God's predestination decided who's going to hell and who's not from the beginning of time. So there's a big difference right there, huge difference. And then they're not the only religion that believes in no free will.
right?
I mean, there's a lot of differences within different religions. So that's why I'm saying the subjective part is more encompassing than you may think.
Yeah, and it goes down a million different rabbit holes too,
Mm-hmm.
because you have like Catholics who have a works-based theology versus salvation. Or I've talked about this before. It's like you can talk about people who say like oneness versus the Trinity, old Earth creationists versus young Earth creationists.
Mm-hmm.
And something I've said before is most Christians, most believers can't even agree on a mode of baptism, full body immersion or sprinkling. They can't all be right, but they can all be wrong, and the problem is that there are huge differences, and there are problems where they are mutually exclusive. So like you say, right? But are you presupposing just a creator God, or are you presupposing a specific God? Because if you're presupposing a specific
I'm
God,
sorry, you're
then
cutting
it's
out. Could
going
you
to
say that
have
again?
more. Then it's going to have more. There's baggage attached to whatever God you're presupposing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. Could you say that briefly one more time?
I said it depends on which.
I know you were making a point about how
You
different
asked him to
religions have
explain, and then you
different.
tried to, and you cut him off. Alejandro, please don't make me mute you. Go on ahead there, Michael.
So it depends on which God we're talking about, because all of these different gods have mutually exclusive traits. Like the God of Islam is not just seamlessly transferable with the Christian God,
Mm-mm.
nor with the Hindu gods like Brahman, Vishnu, and Ganesh, and all these other ones. And they each one comes with baggage. And so that's one of the reasons I asked this question long before: is that which God are we talking about? You say you presuppose a creator God. But I understand that you don't want to get into this. I have my reasons why I think you don't want to. That aside, it is important to discover which one we're talking about, and then we can get into kind of the meat of which creator God you think this is.
Okay, so you've argued that that different people have different opinions about what God wants.
No, I said what God is.
Yes, nature.
Okay, different people have different opinions about what God is and what God wants. How is that shocking? How is that shocking? How is that in any way controversial?
I don't care about what different people think. I'm talking to you. I want to know what you think.
Okay, I think that God gives us a choice between good and evil.
Which God?
Ahura Mazda, the creator.
Sorry, what?
Ahura Mazda, the creator.
Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrian. Remember, we told you this at the start. He mentioned this.
All right. Okay. So I don't. How can I learn? How can I learn more about this God? I know very little about it.
Short question. I'll make it easy. Could you tell him the differences between the Christian morality and your version of morality?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's a good idea.
Differences would be
Christian
short.
morality and my morality are very, very minor.
Yeah.
Short answer. Basically, Christianity and Judaism are heavily inspired by Zoroastrianism. So there's Very little that's different.
Oh yeah. Well, I spoke to a Christian today who said it was immoral not to believe in the triune God. Do you
Okay.
believe in the triune God?
No.
Okay.
I'm Zoroastrian.
So that's a
What's that mean?
demonstration of how this stuff can get really deep because
Hmm.
this person says that you will suffer forever in hell because you worship your God and
Hmm.
not the triune Christian God. So, and that's not just one person. That's he's probably speaking for millions and millions of Christians around the world.
Right, because that's his understanding, and that,
Mhm.
of course, has historical basis.
Mhm.
You're talking mainly of Catholicism and Orthodoxy, I believe,
Mhm.
and this idea
Correct.
that you worship Christ or else you're damned. And once again,
Right.
when you take a step back, what they're saying is you either believe in God or you're doomed, and that's very much what Zoroastrians also believe. You
No,
either
no, no,
doing the
no.
right thing.
They're saying that the if I worship the Muslim God or the Hindu God, the Zoroastrian God, I'm going to hell because even in the Ten Commandments, there is no other God but Yahweh.
There's
Yahweh
only
is a
one God.
jealous God.
Right. Now, if you look in the biblical history of it, you'll notice that Cyrus the Great is the anointed. He is the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
Cyrus the Great was a Zoroastrian.
Correct.
So right there, you understand that Jews and Zoroastrians explicitly in the Old Testament are worshiping the same God.
Okay, but Christians aren't Jews. Christians reject Judaism.
Right. And if you look in the infancy of Jesus, you will observe that three wise men who were Zoroastrian priests
Mm-hmm.
gave homage
Correct.
to Christ in the manger. So, again,
Correct.
Christians and Zoroastrians have huge overlap. Now, his understanding, might be a little different from mine, but ultimately we're saying the same thing. And that
But
if you don't believe in,
these historical texts and stories that you're referring to were created by people.
right? So how's that a problem?
Well, it's not. It's only highlighting that you seem to be making a distinction between people of old versus people that I'm talking to today.
Right?
People are people. People always come up with different beliefs at different times. So it's consistent with what we're talking about. That morality is a social construct, just like culture and religion.
Okay. Well, we already went over morality as a social construct. You'd have to posit that um, there is a civilization out there that, if island came out of the middle of the ocean and the civilization came down that practiced child sacrifice, that civilization could flourish just as well as the civilization which does not practice child sacrifice.
Who said
That
that
was what it
though?
means to be a social construct. For you to say it's a social construct, you have to be able to say it could go another way and be just as fine.
No, 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 no. I
It's
think you're
trifling difference.
conflating social construct with
And
objective moral facts. Like you can have different, totally different societies with different moral codes that all come
and
from that base moral fact of humanity.
and I kind
I
of
can
want to
agree with that.
I want to bring up a little bit of a fact here because it kind of sounds like one of the things that he's bringing up here as a Zoroastrian is something that's brought up by a lot of fundamentalist Christians that the Israelites in their covenant with God they did not sacrifice kids to any of their cultish practices.
Hmm.
However, the fact that they actually have laws telling them not to do that is a pretty good source of evidence that they were doing that.
Right.
And based on scholarly research from Old Testament scholars, ancient Israelites did sacrifice their kids to the cult of Yahweh. So,
Yeah. The story of Jephthah. He sacrificed his daughter to the flames for in the name of Yahweh because of a promise he made to that God. So yeah, it's yeah.
I don't know what you want to make a point of. So at any rate, we're pretty clear on the idea that God doesn't like human sacrifice, and If
No.
civilization pops
No,
up,
God
Depends on which
God.
God.
God likes some human sacrifice. It just
loves
Yeah,
depends on
Jesus.
when
Jesus
and where.
Christ was a sacrifice, and he was a human, right?
Okay, you're going around in a circle. Okay, now let's start with the facts, and the facts are some things work and some things don't. And the things that work are the things that God wants.
Are we using
the
our
things that
autonomous
don't
reasoning to
work-
figure out how God works and how God doesn't?
Yeah,
Is that what we're doing?
Zoroastrian
Are we
thing.
using our own autonomous reasoning to
Okay.
evaluate the workings of God? Should we be
Okay.
doing that?
I'm a Zoroastrian. How is that in any way conflict with my religion? Okay.
I don't know.
I'm
I'm
not
just asking you.
Okay.
Should we be
Right,
doing that?
now, come on, now, right. One person talk. I let Alejandro
Sorry.
ask a question. Jeff retort.
Okay, you guys are going around in a circle. Okay, very
That's the
simple.
third
We
time you've
start
said
with
that.
what works. Yes, because it's simple and you keep trying to not understand it. That's what this whole conversation is. Is me making very simple points, and
Okay,
you just
we should
going
steelman
off
you.
trying not to understand it.
No, we should
Okay,
steelman
I
you.
get
You
that.
got you make a good point. We want to make sure you're being understood. Maybe we should steelman your position.
Okay, it's real simple. We look at what works. All right. Child sacrifice doesn't make a great culture. Slavery doesn't make a good culture. Abortion doesn't make a good culture. So we conclude God doesn't like these things.
I love the way you keep throwing that last one in, which we all disagree with here, except.
Okay?
Jeff.
That's all it is.
No, he made his point. Jeff, now you retort.
I would like to say that it sounds like when you're saying like, "Hey, child sacrifice, not a great way to do a society," that's an appeal to pragmatism. Why are you appealing to pragmatism? If there's an objective morality, that would supersede any appeal to pragmatism. What are you doing?
Okay. Now again, this was the disconnect I believe we went over where someone said human well-being doesn't answer the question. Now if we say it's because God wants, oh, we've discovered God's will. Oh, we've discovered what God wants. Right?
But
Without
have we?
that
I
element-
discovered what
without
God
that
wants,
element,
or I
it doesn't
discovered
make
what's
sense.
better for a society.
Right.
Okay, God wants what's better for society.
Humans want
That's
what's
circular.
better for society. That's circular.
How is it circular? It ends with God.
It starts with God,
God.
too.
It ends with
Okay,
God. It
how
starts
does
with
that-
God. That's
okay,
that's
so
sort of
You've
like a
got
circle.
God saying, all right, no, that's going forward and backwards. 2 is 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 is 1 plus 1.
Still a circle.
One plus one equals two.
Anti-clockwise, clockwise, still a circle.
Goes the same way. All right. Now, as far as circular goes, circular is when you start with the premise. All right.
Don't you start with God exists?
God is the conclusion. All right. When I say why is
How
it
did
that
you
why is
conclude
it,
your God exists?
I've run over it like 16 times. Okay.
I must be
I go,
really
why
dumb. Can you
is it
please
that
explain it again?
worldwide-
Michael, you are
why
thick
is
as
it
shit. Have you not
worldwide-
listened to this guy?
Beginning from the beginning of time, civilization of the present day, all over the world, we've discovered some rather consistent patterns.
And
They all
therefore
say the
your
same
God
thing.
exists?
Right? Can I?
And
I'm going to
therefore
make a
God
statement.
exists.
I'm going to make a statement, and I just want Alejandro to agree with me or disagree with me. I just want a yes or a no. Excuse me. Over time, as we have evolved, as we have moved through time, as technology has increased, our societies have got better. We have decided that murder and this and all them bad things that we agree are bad, whether the reasoning is an objective fact that we are understanding or it is society getting better, it is happening. Over the course of time, this is the way it has become. Would you agree with that, Alejandro?
I'm sorry you were cutting out a few times. Could you say that one more time for me?
Would we agree that over the space of from where it was with human society to where it is now, that our morals are getting better, regardless of the source?
You know, I had to say no.
Let me word it
Unfortunately.
differently. Would you agree that you think it's an understanding of God's morals, where we all think it's a development of society, what is best for our tribe?
I think theists have come to a better understanding of what God wants, and atheists have come to reject that. I mean, I look at
That's
all
not an
the
answer to
things
my
going on
question.
in the world right now.
You're fighting that our general no, you didn't like well-being. Our general society is getting better, but the reason being that we are understanding the objective fact of morality more, where we are saying that with society evolving, society getting better, and realizing we shouldn't kill each other off, that's our reason.
Well,
with a
we've
touch
got
of evolution,
government
because
that,
it's not evolutionary good to kill off your tribe.
well, unfortunately, that kind of runs against the facts. You know, I have to
You're
consider
just not
the
going to
fact
answer. I
that,
specifically said yes or no 2 or 3 times.
yeah, I know you said yes or no, and I'm giving you a nice complete answer. If you don't want a nice complete answer, maybe philosophy isn't for you. Now, if I may,
Yeah.
you know, you asked me a question.
A conversation,
and I'm thinking to myself,
using
God,
philosophy to put forward a conversation, or using philosophy to shout and scream, going, "You don't understand. You're wasting my time. You're not understanding me. Your point is you're the one
okay,
wasting
if
philosophy."
getting better
Out
for
of everybody
Iran,
here, no, my channel. Out of everybody here, you have been the most ignorant. You have put other people down. Nobody here, except for the fact of Michael, has slipped anything in. You've done it constantly. All right, and I've let you off it. Michael did it once, and I called him on it. All right, you've been very condescending to a lot of people in this panel, and I said to Scott that I would try my best to make sure that you had equal opportunity. But you've just been generally just pushing everybody's opinion away. You haven't listened. You've waited for your chance to talk. Jeff did a fantastic chance earlier of explaining the difference between apples and oranges, and you couldn't understand it whatsoever.
okay, are
Show
things
some
getting
respect
better in
for
Japan?
all the other people in the panel. I know you're 1 against 5, but show some respect.
All right, look, is things getting better in Japan? Are things getting better
Right,
in
okay,
Iran?
you're
Are
conflating
things
again.
getting
We have
better in
discussed this.
Afghanistan?
You want to talk about specific societies. We are talking about the human race. All right? That's the difference. The apples and oranges. I just pointed it fucking out to you.
What do you want me to tell you? You know, you asked me if the world's getting better. I'm thinking, God, you know, we're heading into World War III. We show all the signs of economic collapse coming
Right now,
in the
if
next
I can
3
just
years.
jump in, I'll just
And
jump
you're
in
asking
again
me
on
if the
that.
world's getting
All
better?
the fucking wars and all the shit that's going on are being pushed. A lot of it, sorry, not all. A lot of that's being pushed by fucking America and Christians and evangelicals, and the Armageddon's coming. They're aiming for it. They're going for it. So the theists are the one pushing for that sort of shit. Nothing to do with the atheists.
I look at rape gangs running around in Europe. I look at, you know, the New York Post abortion law, asking, oh, is things getting better or worse? You know, I'm looking at people's tax burdens going up. You just want a yes or no? You're getting mad at me when you say, is the world getting better? And I think
I'm
real
getting
hard
mad
about
at
that
you
question,
at
about
the
everything
fact
that's
that you are not
since
using
COVID
a
came
fair
up.
dichotomy. That is the point. That is what I'm saying, man. You are not using a fair dichotomy multiple times.
Are you
No,
more
multiple
free now than
times
you were
on this
before
chat. Both
COVID
me,
started?
Michael, and Jeff has shown you that what you're trying to compare is one thing attached to this and a completely different thing. All right, and you're just ignoring it and saying we're wasting your time, and you're being generally ignorant to people. We are listening to your point. And you're just blatantly pushing everything that most of us say off to the side and going, "You're not understanding me. I can't understand you. You're wasting
You're kind
my
of
time."
steamrolling us, you know, with a lot of gish galloping and stuff like that. So, like I was saying before, we can steel man you if you think that we don't really understand your position. I think we do.
All right, let's just go back to that question. Is the world getting better or worse?
I'm going to
Let's
ask you.
talk
Well,
about
no,
that
I'm going to
question.
ask you a question, which was supposed to be my first question, but you gish galloped, and it's went on for a fucking hour and a half, and I haven't had a chance. Could you define morality for me in a non-religious way? And Michael, seeing as this as your speciality, could you define morality before Alejandro does? Could you define it for me?
Sorry, MathPig, you cut out there for a second. It sounded like you said if I could define
If you would define morality, and then I will ask Alejandro his.
Okay, so my definition of morality is based in well-being, looking for the best possible outcome for individuals and for societies in general. And it addresses things like flourishing and the reduction of harm and suffering, and the promotion of a general balance between things like mental and physical health.
Lots of key words there that were very important. Alejandro, could you do that as well, please?
Yeah, morality is what God wants.
God
Anything.
wants,
So
God
anything
wants
he
to
wants.
kill the firstborn child of
I explained
everybody.
that. How many times have I explained that point? How many times have I explained that point? And we are right. See, you're complaining, and I've just got the same question I answered a few minutes ago repeated back, as if that whole conversation just blanked out into nothing.
No,
That
so
whole
you're saying God,
conversation I
what
had
God,
done, and you're
what
going,
works,
I'm
what
the one with
works
the
is what
problem.
God wants. What works is what God
Thank you.
wants. But this is I think this is the point of the question is, you said what God wants. He's simply asking, what if God decided to do something that didn't work? Would it be moral then?
Okay, that is changing the definition of God.
No, I mean,
No.
it's not
that's
changing
not-
anything. I'm
no,
just
you
asking
asked
a
about
question.
philosophical and being philosophical. This is a philosophical question.
Right.
If God
Can I
decided
answer
to
the
kill all the
philosophical way?
firstborn kids in Northern Ireland in a particular year, if you had to paint red paint above your fucking door, would that be morally right?
I'm Zoroastrian. Why are you asking me about?
I don't.
But I
no,
mean,
it's
anything,
a
any
philosophical,
example.
hypothetical question. I'm asking you,
Okay.
if your God, all right, your Zoroastrian God, decided
Right?
that it was okay to kill all the firstborn kids in Northern Ireland if you painted red blood above your door, would that be okay? If your God
That's a
said so.
nonsensical question. Okay.
It's a philosophical
You're coming at it
hypothetical.
It's
from
a
two-
hypothetical.
It's a
not-
philosophical
hypothetical.
A
hypothetical.
hypothetical doesn't make sense.
No, it
That's
makes a
like
lot of
saying,
sense.
what if
Makes a lot of sense.
Alejandro,
What?
be patient. Be
All right.
patient. Be patient. Be patient. Look, there's a point to the question. The point
Everybody
is
who
does-
decides-
That
does-
doesn't
or-
make sense.
It fucking
No, no,
does,
no, no.
Alejandro. Right, I'm going to
Question.
break it down for you again, okay? God decides everybody in Northern Ireland, where I'm from, their firstborn child is going to be killed. If you want that to happen, you paint red paint above your door. If you don't put red paint above your door. Now, I'm asking
Okay.
you, is that morally okay because your God said so?
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It does.
Okay.
I think I
My
have a different
God.
way to. I think I have a different way to address it. I think what it comes down to, I think we've danced around this a little bit, but nobody's brought it up, is the Euthyphro dilemma.
right. That's what I was
Is
getting at. Right.
yeah, is it moral because God says it is, or does He say it because it is moral?
The point I was trying to make is that
Yes.
on
Okay,
top of the fact that
you
the
start with
humans
the
get to make the
definition.
decision as well. Would you paint red blood, a red paint above your door if you had a child? Because God told you to. That's what I'm fucking asking you, Alejandro. Do you have children?
No.
No. I do have one daughter. I'd like to have more kids. But if anyone here has children, you're not going to paint a fucking red spot above your door.
Okay.
Right.
Why don't you ask a Christian that question? Because
It's a philosophy. You asked about
Right, I
philosophy and
start-
said it's not what I'm interested in, and is philosophy
Right,
not
'cause it's
about
a
asking
nonsensical
hypothetical
question in
questions about
Zoroastrianism.
no, I'm talking.
Alejandro, the Euthyphro dilemma is a philosophical,
And I'd be happy to answer
position.
that question if you'd let me.
Well, go
You
ahead.
said it was
Alright.
nonsensical.
You-
How can you answer it?
All right. First of all, Ahura Mazda, God, is perfectly rational. Okay. So what God does is perfectly rational. All
Okay.
right? So for you to say, would a perfectly rational being say 1 + 1 = 3? That doesn't make any sense because a perfectly rational person isn't going to say 1 + 1 =
Okay.
3.
Now, if I can
Nobody
just
said
if
that.
I can interrupt, a personally rational society isn't going to say, let's legalize murder.
Right?
That was your point
Okay.
earlier, that we could just legalize murder and it would be grand and everybody could do it. A perfectly rational society wouldn't do that.
Right.
And MathPig just perfectly described how it's a social construct.
Hmm.
But seriously, which one is it? like
Which
of the
one was?
Euthyphro, there are two options, only two options. And what you brought up about math is irrelevant to the question. Okay. And being perfectly rational has nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
Okay. It's does he do it because it is good? If he does it because it is good, then it cannot come from him. It must come from outside of him. And if whatever he does is good, then you cannot say, well, a perfectly rational X wouldn't do Y, because it doesn't matter anymore, because it doesn't matter what it is. If he says
Again, you're
it
trying to
is
change the
so.
definition of God.
No, I'm asking
No.
you. I'm not telling you. I'm
Yes,
asking
you
you.
are. You're changing the definition of God.
No, I'm
No,
not.
he's
I am
asking you.
asking you.
Okay, so what is the definition of God? Let me ask you, if you're not changing it, what is the definition of God?
I don't have a definition. Okay, let's see. A definition of God. I'm an atheist, but I think you know what? I'll use Aaron Ross. A magical, anthropomorphic immortal.
Okay, so there you go. Your weird-ass conception of God can do whatever he wants, and you're trying to paste that onto the creator of the cosmos, perfectly rational, perfectly just, perfectly
Then
good.
when you please
That's the
tell
problem.
me,
You're changing the definition of God,
then would
and
you
that's why we
please
don't have
tell
agreement.
me how, from your God's perspective, because again, I wasn't telling you, I was asking you.
Jeff, are you a wig?
With your God, is it whatever he says is moral, or does he say it because it is? Of your God, not the one I don't even think exists. From your God, which one is it?
What's good is good because God has ordained it to be good. Because God
There we
will do
go.
good.
Finally.
Both of us got.
Perfect. Perfect. Go.
Yeah.
Now,
You know, God decided 1 plus
follow
1
up.
equals 2, and God decided murder is wrong.
Right. So morals and all that comes from the nature of God, not the other way around. Okay, great. That's all we wanted to know.
Yep. Scott, take over. I think you got this now.
Right. So if God, hypothetically, if God were to say, we need to wipe out Islam, kill them all,
Okay.
destroy all of the false, worshipers. If God says that, you're saying that that's right, that that's moral.
What's rational is moral.
Yeah, but
So if we have a population,
so how do you know in God's view that it's not rational at the end of the day? Maybe it's not. It doesn't seem rational now, but maybe you could always say, hey, it's maybe there's a reason that I'm not aware of, and I should just have faith and do God's work. Do you think that would be acceptable?
Well, you see, again, you're
Because
coming at
then
it
you're
from-
not basing. Then morality becomes subjective.
Well, the thing is, you're coming at it from a Christian or post-Christian perspective. You know,
But you're
as a
also
Zoroastrian,
saying,
I go,
and if I can, I'm sorry before I lose thought, by saying that morality comes from the nature of God himself, you're saying that God's morality is subjective because it's within his mind.
I went over that point already.
Now, I understand you
Did you
did,
not
but
hear
I'm
that
just
point?
reiterating that what you're really saying and what you're really arguing
Then
for
math
is
subjective too. We went over that.
subjective
Physics is
morality.
subjective. Rocks are subjective. Gravity is subjective. Great.
No,
Everything
gravity is
No.
not subjective.
No one
We
can
are
be
not
right.
agree.
No.
You, right? You
You
are
said it.
conflating the fact that your opinion of morality is an objective fact. You are conflating that with gravity and saying now gravity is subjective. No, gravity and physics and mathematics are not subjective. They are what's happening. We are not conflating that. You are. Stop
And I
doing
went
that.
over that
No,
point.
And
fucking
you
stop
are
doing that.
saying,
Stop
Alejandro,
doing that.
you
that
are
point as
saying that morality is subjective. You're arguing for
No, I'm
subjective
not.
morality. Yes, you
No, I'm
are.
not.
When you say God
You're changing the
is the
definition of
arbiter
subjective.
of morality, that means God doesn't get his morality outside of mind. He gets it from his own nature. Just like
Again,
humans
that
do.
was
You can say
everything that
humans
existed.
just make up stuff because it's their
I
nature,
went
makes
over
them
this
feel
point.
good. God is doing the same
I went over
thing.
this. Scott, I went over this point already. You're repeating a point I've already gone over, and you're saying I'm being repetitive. I've answered your point. We can
So you
roll
are
back this
then
tape.
you agree. Then you agree that
Okay,
morality is subjective to God.
You've changed the definition of subjective.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Everything is subjective now.
Subjective
what?
means
Physics
it's
helps.
subject to a person or a thing.
Okay.
Is God
so
a
like
person?
I said, you've changed. Like I said, rocks falling down because of gravity is subjective because it's rooted in God's nature. Physics working is subjective because it's rooted in God's nature. I've already gone over that point.
Yeah.
How many
Okay,
times do I have to
got
go
you.
over the
I
point
understand
before
what
you
you're
get
saying.
it?
I'm sorry, Alejandro. I apologize. Now I understand what you're actually trying to say. So you're saying that everything that exists is from God's mind, like idealism. In that case, yeah, everything is subject to the dreams of God. I agree. So you're not helping your position though. You're only admitting that not only is morality subjective, but so is gravity.
You now have subjective objective. You've literally expanded the definition of subjective to include
No, you have.
everything that's ever happened. You have.
I'm still manning you.
Okay, so what's objective then?
For you, I don't know. You would have to explain that,
Okay,
because if
see, that's the
everything comes
problem.
from God, if
Right?
everything comes from the mind of God, everything would be subjective. It seems to me.
Right.
Would you,
That's
would
the
you
problem.
consider, Alejandro, would you consider the rules of chess to be objective?
Jeff, are you in the toilet?
The rules of chess.
No. Am I echoing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like you were asleep when I shouted and you didn't answer, and now I think that's because you were in the
Little
toilet.
hollow.
Sound really far away.
Is that any better?
Oh yeah, way better.
Way better.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. It was the echo cancellation. Sorry.
Okay. So
Jeff, ask your question.
Do you believe, Alejandro, that you seem to be talking about this weird idea of hey, what were you guys ripping into each other about?
He was saying that everything derives from the mind of God, like gravity, morality, everything. So
Yeah.
I was
I
saying
think
that it
BRAINBUG
seems like he's arguing that reality is subject to the mind of God.
Yeah, that
Therefore, kind of undercutting his position here.
BrainBug put it perfectly. Objective is equal to subjective of God.
Yeah, correct.
Do you believe that God can be objective of his own creation?
what?
Do you believe that God can be objective of his own creation?
God is objective by definition.
Why is
God
he
created
objective
the
by
cosmos
definition? What does that mean?
because he created the cosmos. So what happens is at his fiat.
Do you understand, though, that if he created the cosmos, then the cosmos, by definition, is subjective to God, right?
Right.
Could I
Right.
also ask a favor,
Well,
Alejandro?
the
When
thing
you
is,
refer to
again,
your
God
God,
doesn't
could you stop saying God? Because it's in this community. You say God, I think Christian. My argument's going to come back against you. Your God is named.
Zoroaster.
We're talking about God, okay? Now, the Christian conception of God, you're
I'm just saying,
know,
man, when
it's
you
like
say
saying-
God, 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 and there's 5 people talking, I'm going to come back to you with a natural response of a Christian God, because that's what we do. You're not a Christian. You've made that point. You're a Zoroastrian. So when you're talking about your God, could you talk about Azura Mazda? Is that what his name is? Their name?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Ahura Mazda.
Yeah, so I'm just asking if you could say that instead of God, because I don't want to come back with you, at you, with a Christian argument. And I will if you keep saying God.
Yeah.
If you
That's
say
a fair
Azura
point,
Mazda,
MathPig.
I will get into it'll be better.
But it does sort of sound like all the traits that have been assigned to the Christian God have been assigned to Ahura Mazda by him. So
I was just asking for a slight change, so I
In
can.
language,
I get it. But I'm just saying, I think that Alejandro has no problem with the fact that it, you know,
Of course.
Ahura Mazda
we
and
can
Jesus
say
are the
Ahura
same.
Mazda. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I suppose, and it's funny because what echoes from what Scott just said is that it, talk about objective, subjective. I think one thing that it demonstrates is the absolute arbitrariness of this God, and that it's just like whatever, and then it's simply written off as, well, God's all good, so of course whatever it is going to be good because it's his nature. And I mean, you want to talk about circular arguments. sure sounds like one. But at the very least, I think it demonstrates the absolute arbitrariness of it.
Well, once again, you have the same problem. Physics is now arbitrary. Math is now arbitrary. Gravity is
Math is
arbitrary.
not arbitrary.
Light is arbitrary.
I don't know
It's
why
not.
you're rabbit trailing like that, because we're talking about God, not
Because you're
physics.
making it's the same thing.
I
You're
No,
making
no,
the
no.
point,
I
it's
didn't
just the
bring
God
that up.
You're
makes it
making it the same
arbitrary.
thing.
I
Same
didn't
thing,
bring
because-
that up.
Oh,
I mentioned God.
Okay,
Just God.
Right?
Just God. Just God. I didn't say math. I didn't say physics. I didn't say gravity. I said God.
okay. So you said morality is arbitrary because of God. Well, guess what? Because of God physics, because of God math, because of God's speed of light, because of God
There
gravity.
you go again.
So, it's
Because
the same
you're-
point
you're-
you're
the-
making that I've already dealt with. I've already
But
dealt
there,
with this point how many times? And you still don't get it.
but you
It's
see,
like
in
I
nature,
talk
there's also
and nod
evil. There's
let me
also
talk.
bad.
Well, here's the thing. You guys have asked me the same question for 2 hours over and over and over again. First time was great. Second time I understood. I don't know how many times it is now. You guys keep asking me the same questions. I give you the same answers. You nod. You go, wow, that's great. But what about? And you ask the same question again.
Well, Alejandro,
I'm just saying, it just seems
maybe
like
you did. Maybe you did. Repeating yourself, but it's not to piss you off. It's just to kind of understand. Some people, we're trying to understand, and sometimes repeating a question in a different way may help to foster the conversation along. Like, we're not just gonna say, "Oh, he answered this way, therefore we understand." If we really don't, we're trying to approach it.
And just to be fair, Alejandro, and I'm not saying this just to be dismissive or insulting, but your apologetics are lacking when it comes to like the Christian versions of it. So, up your game.
I can put a Christian hat on and answer you as the best I know about Christianity. All right, but we're talking theism versus atheism. Okay.
I thought we were talking about morality.
We were talking
Yeah.
about morality, not atheist. Yeah.
Okay. Atheistic morality, best you can do is completely arbitrary.
Okay.
All right? Well-being, completely 100% arbitrary.
Right, now you make a
Completely
big difference. Right.
Let me ask you this
Hold
question.
on.
If
I'm going to
if
point on
something
that.
is
I'm
coming,
really going to grab on that, Jeff. I'm going to give you the floor afterwards, right? But that's something that well-being of the general person, the general population, the general humanity. You have a 100% actual problem with that.
Yeah. Can you please, and this is something I alluded to before, please give me a scenario where I cannot address it with well-being as an objective standard. I dare you.
Please answer that
Okay.
question, Alejandro. Do not dodge it. I will
Well-being.
call
You
you.
want me to come up with a scenario where well-being. All right. Do you want to talk about the well-being of the human species or the well-being of an individual?
Give me a scenario.
Okay. Sacrificing the human species would be better for every other species on Earth.
Okay, I can very easily address this as well-being. The reason why that specific scenario is immoral is because it is less favorable for the well-being of individuals to be sacrificed.
Okay.
Regardless of the greater good outcome.
Oh, Alejandro,
No.
you said your bit. He's now retorting. Please let him finish. Then you can say your bit.
Regardless of the greater good, and it wouldn't be for the greater good anyway, because the reason why societies don't sacrifice mass loads of children anymore is because they basically figure out, hey, if we keep killing off all of our kids, we don't have any kids anymore. But even that aside, even if we take it down to the micro level, when we look at each individual, the reason why, from a moral perspective, child sacrifice is wrong is because it negatively impacts the well-being of those children being sacrificed. And it does that because it's not for their better well-being to be killed.
Well, it's not generally kids. It's the entire human race.
Whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even the
entire
person who
human race.
sacrifices.
We sacrifice the entire human race, and every other species on the planet benefits.
Oh, I agree with you there. I think Earth would be in better shape if human beings weren't here. You're not going to get any. I don't think you'll get disagreement from anybody here on that.
There you go.
And this addressed my question. How?
I would actually.
Right,
That
now,
was
Jeff,
the
we
point.
said that we would give Jeff a chance. Michael
The-
has had a go. Jeff, can you retort?
Yeah, the point that I would make is that objectively it would be better for the entire planet, the biome, if humans weren't around. But if you're going to make some kind of moralistic rule set for how humans should behave while they're here, that's different. The way that humans can survive while on this planet is very different. So there's a different moralistic take. The planet itself could benefit greatly if humans were all dead.
That
But
was the point I was
if it's
going to make.
morally better for humans to be here, or if that's the moral stratagem that we're approaching, that we want humans to go on, then the approach has to be slightly different than that.
I could
So-
reword Michael's question to address Jeff's point. Michael's question in reference to morality and well-being. What is the best well-being for humans? And your response was, kill all the humans because the world will be better.
Sorry,
Would that be right, Jeff?
that was not it exactly. It was to the point that if you want the world to benefit, you might actually be able to make an argument to kill all the humans. But if you want humans to benefit, you'd make a different argument entirely.
Okay. Well, like you said, obviously we have two conflicting problems that aren't very solvable in a naturalistic, non-theistic paradigm, is it?
What does your theistic paradigm bring to the party?
Grounding.
How does it ground anything, though? If
I think I've answered that question before.
But if the God, hang on, this is actually kind of interesting, right? So, if creation, right, as a whole, is a product of this God making it, right, then humans supposedly are something that's incredibly valuable and cannot go extinct. But the rest of society, the rest of creation, right, that can just get thrown away. So that seems kind of subjective, right? Based on
I
that
think
God's
I missed
morality.
something. Could you back up just a little bit? I think I might have missed something.
So a God, right? The God that you're talking about, the God of creation, the God of the Bible, the God of Zoroastrianism, would not want a society in which would not foster a moral paradigm in which it's absolutely morally the case that humans should cease to exist, right? But it could actually be the case that it might be better for the rest of the species in the planet, for all those species they would be better off if humans just didn't live, right?
Right.
But
Okay.
this particular God wants humans to exist, and so humans exist. So
Right. We're special.
can you establish how this is anything other than subjective?
How are humans special? Well, number one, we're rational. Number two, we're moral. That's what makes us special.
It doesn't matter. Hang on, it doesn't matter that we're rational or moral. There are plenty of other animals that are rational and moral. Raccoons are rational. Crows are moral. What I want to ask you, bonobos are moral
Okay,
too. They actually behave.
I think we went over the moral animal thing already.
No, how is it not
Did you wanna
subjective?
rehash
my
any
of
man?
that?
No,
No,
I want to know,
Alejandro.
how is it not subjective?
Okay, we went over morals and animals before. Is there something in that point that we did not go over?
The fact
did
that you
not
didn't
go
over
agree
how
with what
you
Michael was saying
define
about
how-
it being a choice and a decision.
How is it not subjective?
Okay, I went over that point already as well. Is there something I didn't cover when I went over that?
I guess you probably missed it because I must have missed it. I don't.
Okay. I went over that point in great detail. We talked about how humans have the ability to decide, and animals largely don't. You can make an argument, but you don't have proof. You kind of have to anthropomorphize, and we really shouldn't do that. Remember
Animals.
Bob the asshole elephant, who guys, not the other elephant's not anymore. Bob the elephant, he was an asshole. I don't care if he died. We don't see that. Okay, so
Do you
we
think
should
that-
be very lightly when we discuss animals and morality, right? And the other thing about it is we're going to talk about animal morality. We're going to talk about ants taking slaves, okay?
When we're
We're gonna
talking
talk
about
about
animals,
monkeys raping.
hang on. When we're talking about animals and morality, we're talking about people. And so anybody,
So again,
anytime I hear, hang on,
you have the same
hang
problem.
on. Let me finish this point. I'll let you interject. Anytime some kind of like theologian or theologian apologist or wannabe like yourself wants to interject and say that humans have some kind of special category in this, you guys are usually talking right out your ass. We are animals, at least
Okay.
as far as anything else that it can actually be, reasonably demonstrated. And when you guys start talking about things like morality and all these kinds of things, the only thing that you can use to demonstrate the specialness of the morality that you want to talk about is the subjectiveness of the God that is endowing us with any of these special creations. When people start pointing out that other animals in creation, which may or may not be dependent upon the God that you're talking about, also have these kinds of characteristics, like killer whales being able to mourn their dead, or elephants being able to do the same, or elephants being able to remember their lineage. You guys just blow that off. It's just some side effect of creation. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how committed are you to the notion of the subjectivity of creation? Because it doesn't seem like that you are that committed to it. It seems like you're only committed to it enough to define it into existence so that you can bamboozle people into thinking that they need to believe in a God in order to justify their insecurities about what's going to happen to them after they're dead.
You're bloviating.
Yeah, I am bloviating a little bit, but what are you doing?
You asked a question, and I want to answer it. So stop bloviating. Thank you. All right. So to answer your question,
I already pointed out how you are being a condescending prick. So that's warning two.
Well, I mean condescending because I'm
warning
answering
two.
the same question.
That's all right. We're not
going to
argue about it because it's my channel, and in my channel, I made this place, and I'm God here. So what I say goes.
That's great. All right. So is he done? Can I answer the question?
I've been silent.
Talking? Okay, good. All right. You're arguing that we're just another species of animal, and that means everything we do is equally correct.
That was not my argument.
And guess what? It doesn't work. No, that is your argument. You just don't want to be honest about it.
That was not my argument.
Wait, Jeff. Let him finish, Jeff. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Okay, you're saying that human beings are just another species of animal. You know what? Bonobos do elephants mourn, we mourn. Bonobos do this, we do this. Ants take slaves. So guess what? That argues that everything everyone does is equally moral. That's what you're arguing. Own it. We discover that guess what? It doesn't work. All right? Civilization over there that practices child sacrifice and setting women on fire and whatever else does not work as well as a civilization over here that is just and rational and presumes innocence. So that's your answer. Simple.
Something I just wanted to chuck in just super quickly, and I promise I'll be quiet.
That's okay with Jeff. If that's okay with Jeff.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that response did not make any sense. That didn't really deal substantively with anything that I said. You basically just went on to say, like, all animals are the same, which is something that I did not actually bring up. And then went on to say, how do you even demonstrate that, which is not something even you can do, given the fact that you are invoking a creator God that obviously created different levels of created species that can obviously experience creation at different levels. Oh, that's fascinating, my man. Like, look, the guy with the physique of melted ice cream in his convertible in Los Angeles is using his hand puppet thing to mimic me. That's weird.
I think that's something MathPig would call a dick move. Anyway,
that's your third warning. You do it again.
Oh, he left again. He's gone.
I kicked him because it was just fucking
pardon
ignorant. I was typing in the private chat and didn't notice what he was doing. Alejandro, I know you're thinking you're swinging your big dick around and all the rest of it. You're just being an ignorant prick. You do that again, I don't give a fuck. We've had plenty of time. I'll just kick you. That's damn right ignorant. Nobody has went that low.
Okay. Are we just another species of animal or not?
Yeah, demonstrably so. But something that I just wanted to touch on really quickly just before it gets lost is something that you mentioned just before Jeff got with his response to what you said. You one of the things you said was, you said you keep on making these assertions and don't have the ability to prove it. And to that, I would say, you started with an assertion that God exists and haven't even attempted to demonstrate that at all. So, if I were you, I might be careful at, tossing out accusations of making assertions without able to demonstrate them. Okay. Unless you can demonstrate your God exists, and then you get ready for a Nobel Prize.
Okay. Do some civilizations do better than others?
I can't believe we're back on this with what I just said.
Do some civilizations do better than others?
The Aztecs did great, and they were sacrificing their own to their sun god.
And they're not around anymore. Do some civilizations
But they did great while they were doing that. Dude, this is a weird take on a kind of like, this does not make sense.
You're basically that all civilizations do roughly equal. That's what you're arguing.
No, your argument is an appeal to consequence. You're saying that something is true because of the consequence that you feel is good. If the consequence is good, then that means it must be true, or God must be true. That's an appeal to consequence. There's a lot of different models to explain morality.
That's looking at facts. I'm asking a question. Now, there's two answers. Number one, all civilizations are roughly equal. That's one possibility. Possibility number two is some civilizations are more successful than others. Okay? Now, when I ask the question, he wants to tell me that, the Aztecs were successful in their time, and the, Muslims were successful in our time, so we can't make any recalls. All civilizations are roughly equal. Okay, well, there you have it.
Okay, I don't think he even said that.
He didn't really say that, but
there's only two possibilities.
Even if he did, it wouldn't even. I'm not sure how that proves that morals are not a social construct. I mean, some civilizations can make social constructs that are better than others. So
we talked about social constructs already.
Yeah, no, that's the topic of the discussion here. So we're just
you've expanded the definition of social construct to include things that are objective. I remember that part of the conversation.
Right, okay. I'm going to ask.
When did he do that?
I'm going to ask a question. We have one slot open. Should we continue to an after party? Alejandro, would you like other crazy, mad, fucking atheists to come in and ask you questions?
Here's the thing. Henceforth, I'm doing one-on-one only. All right?
That's cool. Doesn't answer my question.
Henceforth, no, I'm not doing an after party. Okay? Because, again, henceforth, one-on-one only. Because every time I do this, it's y'all on me, and then it gets circular. Well, some people apparently go to sleep when I explain a point to someone else. I have to explain it again.
I'm biased because I think I'm fucking class, but I think I have been a decent moderator. I'd give myself at least an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
You're fucking brilliant, MathPig.
I don't think anybody's attacked you, Alejandro. I think we're just having a discussion, and I don't know why you feel that way.
I've made sure that you have got to answer. I did interrupt you there, which I apologize, but I have made sure that you have got a chance to answer everybody. I've cut down people when they've been ignorant to you. I give you the floor for as much time as you want, until, in all honesty, go on ahead.
All right, so at any rate, I'm going to check out. I've given you guys 2 hours and 15 minutes. Like I said, I'd love to do this again, but it's going to be one-on-one. That's my rules. Okay?
Alejandro, if you want, before you leave, you can have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
I don't need it. I said everything I need to say.
I just wanted to make sure the option is there.
If anyone wants to talk to me about which God or how do we know it's God, we can do that in the future. But again, it's going to be one-on-one. All right?
Michael, I think I speak for all of us when I say each one of us would be interested in a one-on-one with you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone. Fire it up.
1 second. Sorry for the bad, but this is the quickest way.
I don't know if it's appropriate to say it here or maybe in the after party. That guy's a dick. He's a jerk. Man, what a dick.
Oh, yeah. What we do?
Did he just go away?
Yeah, he just dumped himself. Yeah, he just dumped himself.
Okay. Okay.
So what I'm going to do
Yeah,
is
I
I'm
would've
going
dumped-
to, right, this is a fucking free-for-all, all right? Absolute fucking free-for-all.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It wasn't. You've had more chaotic exchanges on
No,
your
no, no. I'm
stuff.
putting the link in the fucking chat, all right?
Ah,
I just put the link in
yeah.
the chat. Come fill the
okay.
last 2 slots. We'll be
In
having
my
a-
own defense, MathPig, on previous streams of yours, I've been much more of a dick than I was tonight.
No,
Yeah,
no.
you're
I-
really cordial.
I've seen Michael get much more dickish than he had tonight. Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So it's a free for all. I've put the link in the chat. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna work around the room. Scott, no, actually on the stream, Michael, you're top of the pile. Go on ahead.
What do you want me to say?
I want you to fucking shell yourself. Go on.
Oh, okay. Hi. If you haven't figured out, my name's Michael. I do a little bitty podcast with my friend Dean called The Canadian Atheist, and this is open to anyone and everyone. MathPig, if you wouldn't mind, maybe chucking my email into the live chat. Just
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't mind.
CA.
I am doing so much shit. Not fucking happening.
Oh, okay.
Someone
It's
else
just
can do it.
the CA at rogers.com. Please feel free to send me an email. Love having discussions with people. And there's only a couple of exceptions of people I won't talk to. And anyone who's heard me blather on at any length knows who those people
Oh
are.
my god, you see, this is what's happening right now. There's like 10 people and 6 slots. I
Yeah.
fucking knew this shit was gonna happen.
That's okay. That's okay. I need to go spend some time with my wife. So I'm going to duck out. I want to thank you very much for inviting me. Jefferson, nice to be with you again. Scott,
Always.
lovely to meet you. And that goes to you as well. Love to have you on the podcast. And yeah, thanks again. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for keeping your cool.
Oh no, I'm letting
Good job.
Savage Men who can come on because
Please.
fuck you, doorknob head. It's not a pork sausage link. All right, I'm
Yeah.
really
Tell-
I'm
Michael,
not a misogynist.
please
all
tell
right?
your wife we're grateful that she let you be here for this. So
Oh yeah, I will. I will pass that on. It will make no difference.
I'm sure. It will.
Thank you very much.
Your wife sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
Michael.
Thank you very
Kind
much.
of like mine.
She's amazing, and I love her to death. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Bye.
All right, good night.
Thank you very much. So on that note, that leaves us with Scott. What would you like to show?
Yeah, so
Oh my goodness, there's so
on
many people joining.
Thursdays. Yep. So on Thursdays, at 6 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry. I do Promethean Secular Frontier debate in the Sandbox, Sandbox Debate Club rather. And so I talk to different people. I moderate debates and stuff like that. And then on Sundays, I'm on Free Thought Radio as a guest host. So I do that on the radio for Free Thought Radio Hour in Nashville. So, yeah, I get involved. I did a few other channels before, but the producer had issues and she couldn't continue on. But, yeah, I'm always doing something.
You need a producer. 50 quid a stream.
Yeah.
2 hours. You know. Make a living out of this shit. If I can get a stream a day, I don't have to go to work. You know.
50
That would be
quid.
awesome.
50 quid a stream. God damn, that's a good
Heck yeah.
production.
Man, have you seen
Nice.
what I can do? That 50 quid a stream includes me building you a multiple setup, includes all your intros, your outros, your whole fucking thing. Like, you know,
Sure, but if I don't have any incoming income, it's just outage for me. So
What you do is you bring on somebody like this guy, and then you charge people $5 a head to like come on and talk to him for 5 minutes. And,
yeah,
like,
at this point, the only way that I could afford MathPig would be to bring on MathPig to talk to him.
Right, well, you see, this is the thing, right? I do this, right? I do 50 quid to produce a stream, which never happens because I always do it for fucking free. Or I can spend 5 hours with you teaching you how to do it, which I'd much rather do because it's a hell of a lot funnier.
I don't know if I have 5 hours,
But
but
the longest has been 5, the shortest has been 1. And the only reason that there was one at 1 is because the fucker had the same size screen as me. I didn't have to figure the
you
settings
told
out.
me about that.
Yeah, I just sent him my settings. So anyway, right, fuck all
Yeah.
this shit. We are going to the after party. So too many fucking people. I'm gonna have to start paying for stream. Fuck off. Do you pay for
Start.
StreamYards?
No, who me?
Yes.
I do.
Do you?
I do.
Do you have a 10-person account?
I do.
Okay, Jeff is going to, in the private chat, post the link for a 10-person hangout, and I'm
What
going to
the
hijack
fuck?
that motherfucker, and we will
All
be
right.
back in about 5 minutes.
Wait, so are you making me the host of the after party?
You can send him the link.
Technically.
That sounds exactly like what you're doing.
No. It's going to be on my channel, and I'm actually going to do my StreamYard's hack on it. The only thing I can't do is add and remove people. I can do everything else.
I'm confused. What do you want me
I'm
to
not
do?
technical talking. Thanks everybody for coming.
He just wants you
We're going to run
to
the outro,
open a
everybody.
10-person
Yay!
stream.
Come back in 5 minutes. Yay!